For about 50 years, we thought we knew the whole story of ketamine. You know, born in the lab, a real win for human chemistry. But what if that was only chapter 1? Turns out this famous molecule has been hiding a secret identity, one that's way older and way wilder than anyone could have guessed. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, just think about this for a second. Imagine we invent something brilliant, right? A product of pure human genius, designed from the ground up. And then we find out nature quietly beat us to the punch by millions of years. Well, that's not a thought experiment. That is the absolutely bizarre, true story of ketamine.
All right, so first up, let's cover the story we all thought was the only story, the official version. This is a classic tale of smart people in a lab solving a really specific problem. You know, top-down, rational drug design at its finest. So, back in the 50s, there was this anesthetic called phencyclidine. You probably know it as PCP. And yeah, it was powerful, but it had a huge flaw. Patients would wake up completely agitated, delirious, just terrified. Not great. So the chemists at Park and Davis had a mission: keep the good stuff, the pain relief, but ditch the awful side effects. And in 1962, Dr. Calvin Stevens totally nailed it. He created this new compound, CI-581, which we now know as ketamine. A few years later, by 1970, it got the FDA's seal of approval, and just like that, the world had this game-changing new anesthetic.
So what made this stuff so revolutionary? Well, it was the unique state it put you in. It wasn't like other anesthetics that just, knock you out cold. Instead, it created what's called a dissociative state. Patients were basically in a trance, totally free from pain, but not completely unconscious. This was something brand new.
And oh man, it was a total game changer. For one, it was just safer. Patients kept breathing on their own, which is a huge advantage pretty much anywhere. In fact, it was so reliable that it became an absolutely critical tool for medics on the battlefields of the Vietnam War. I mean, we're talking about saving countless lives in the most brutal conditions you can imagine.
And for the next 50 years, that was the story. End of chapter. It was a man-made molecule designed for a purpose, with this perfectly clear, well-documented history, right from the lab to the operating room. The story seemed totally complete. Or so we thought.
And then, things take a wild turn. The story jumps from a pristine, sterile lab to the dirt, the soil. Yeah, in a totally different field of science, researchers were out bioprospecting, basically hunting for useful stuff in nature. And they stumbled onto something that was about to rewrite the entire book on ketamine.
So, this is where we get to origin story number 2. And this one, it's not a story about deliberate, careful design. Nope. This is a story about just looking. It's about serendipity, and it's about a tiny microscopic predator with a very surprising secret weapon.
So meet the hero of our second story, this little fungus. It's found basically everywhere in the world, and it makes its living by hunting down and eating these tiny parasitic worms called nematodes. Yeah, it's a microscopic carnivore. Pretty cool, right?
Okay, so you've got these researchers in Brazil, and they're on a hunt for a natural worm killer. And their whole approach is the complete opposite of the first story. Instead of trying to design a molecule from scratch, they just grew a bunch of this fungus, pulled out all the chemicals it was making, and started testing them on worms. And bingo, they see one of these extracts causes this incredibly potent paralysis. They knew they had something big. Now they just had to figure out what the heck that active ingredient was.
And this is the moment the story just completely flips on its head. They run the mystery compounds through their most advanced machines, and the answer that comes back is just unbelievable. It was ketamine. Not something like ketamine, not a distant chemical cousin. It was pure, 100% identical ketamine. This drug that everyone, and I mean everyone, thought was purely synthetic, was being cranked out by a common fungus in the soil. Just wow.
You might be thinking, okay, but was it just a tiny trace amount? A fluke? Well, this number right here tells the story. The fungus was pumping it out at a concentration of over 50 micrograms per milliliter. To be clear, that's not just a whisper of a chemical. That is a powerful, biologically active dose. The fungus means business.
So how is this even possible, right? How could two totally separate paths, one being brilliant human chemists in a lab, the other being millions of years of fungal evolution, end up at the exact same molecule? The answer is this really cool scientific idea called convergent evolution.
I mean, look at this. The two paths could not be more different. You've got Dr. Stevens using rational synthesis to make an anesthetic for us, and then you have a fungus through natural selection making a worm killer. But here's the kicker. They both ended up at the same solution, because both versions of ketamine, born worlds apart, work by hitting the exact same biological bullseye, a little thing called the NMDA receptor.
This NMDA receptor, it is the absolute key to this entire mystery. Think of it like a really important piece of hardware in the nervous system. It's been around for millions of years of evolution, so it's in almost everything, from us to those tiny worms. It's just as vital for a worm's ability to move as it is for our own consciousness. It's like a universal lock that's built into all of us, and it just so happens that ketamine is the perfect master key.
So how does this key work to paralyze a worm? You'd probably guess it just shuts the whole system down, right? But it actually does the complete opposite. Ketamine goes in and blocks the brake cells in the nervous system. It cuts the brake lines. And without any brakes, the whole system just goes haywire, firing like crazy. All that chaos leads to paralysis. The fungus basically hijacks the worm's nervous system and makes it crash.
And get this, the fungus isn't just the lone wolf predator. It's often a partner. It'll live inside the roots of plants, and in return for a place to stay, it acts like a tiny chemical bodyguard. It just pumps ketamine out into the soil, creating this protective shield to keep its plant buddies safe from those parasitic worms. And don't think for a second this is just some quirky science fact. When they tested it in animal studies, the ketamine made by this fungus was just as good at killing parasitic worms as the leading commercial drugs on the market. We're talking albendazole and ivermectin. This isn't just interesting, this is a seriously powerful natural weapon.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here? Why does this all matter? Well, this discovery does more than just rewrite a history book. It cracks open a whole new world of possibilities for the future. For medicine, for agriculture, and even for how we think about discovering new drugs in the first place.
Well, for one, it completely shatters that old, tired debate between natural versus synthetic, right? We attach all this meaning to those words. Natural is good, synthetic is bad, or vice versa. But ketamine is proof that it's a totally false choice. What a molecule does comes from its shape, its structure. It doesn't matter one bit if it was made in a fungus or a factory.
This discovery also hands us this incredibly powerful new tool. You see, the old way of doing this, bioprospecting, is kind of like wandering into a massive library and just pulling books off the shelf, hoping you find a good one. But this new idea, retro bioprospecting, is totally different. It's like going into that same library, already knowing the plot of an amazing story, and then searching to see if anyone in there has already written it. It completely flips the whole discovery process on its head.
And the potential real-world uses here are just huge. I mean, think about it. In agriculture, we could breed super potent versions of this fungus to act as an all-natural, eco-friendly pesticide. In medicine, maybe we could tweak the molecule to create a version of ketamine that kills parasites without the psychoactive effects. And in biotech, we could get engineered yeast to just brew bioketamine for us, a totally green way to produce it.
It really is an incredible thought when you step back. For millions of years, in this silent, invisible war happening under our feet between a fungus and a worm, evolution perfected this chemical weapon. And in the process, totally by accident, it forged a key that unlocks some of the deepest secrets of the human mind.
And that really leaves us with one final, massive question. If ketamine, a drug we were sure was a human invention for over half a century, was actually hiding in nature this whole time, what else is out there? What other foundational drugs of modern medicine might have their own secret, ancient origins, just waiting for us to find them?